Admiral Vex-Thorne adjusted his ceremonial battle crest, the blue-green scales along his neck rippling with barely contained amusement. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 years of galactic conquest. His officers, representing 12 different species from across the Confederation, stood at attention behind their control stations. "So," he said, his voice carrying the distinctive clicking undertone of his people, "we're hunting myths today." Commander Yela September, her 6 arms dancing across her tactical display, let out what passed for a chuckle among her kind. The great Admiral Vex-Thorne, terror of the Andromeda Spiral, reduced to chasing ghost stories and fairy tales. Oh, but what delicious fairy tales they are! Vex-Thorne's mandibles clicked in what humans might have recognized as a grin. Bipedal creatures who supposedly conquered their homeworld without any natural weapons, armor, or enhanced biology. Who somehow developed spaceflight despite having lifespans shorter than our adolescent growth cycles. Lieutenant Krosnine, the ship's intelligence officer, cleared his throat with a sound like grinding metal. "Sir, the data fragments we've collected from the Outer Rim settlements do suggest something unusual." "Unusual?" Vex-Thorne spun in his command chair, which had been specially designed to accommodate his people's unique physiology. "Kraz, my dear fellow, we've been the undisputed masters of this galaxy for over 3 millennia. We've catalogued, conquered, or consumed every sentient species worth mentioning. The idea that some primitive mammalian species could have evaded our detection networks is..." He paused, searching for the right word. "Insulting." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Through the massive viewport, the red dwarf system they'd been investigating looked disappointingly empty. No signs of advanced civilization, no energy signatures, no indication that the legendary humans had ever existed. "Perhaps," offered Navigator Quintal, her serpentine form coiled around her station, "the stories are simply that. Stories. Tall tales told by spacers who've spent too long in the void. Stories don't destroy entire pirate fleets," Krosnine interjected, his metallic voice carrying an edge of concern. "Stories don't leave behind wreckage with weapons technology we can't identify." Vex-Thorne's crest flattened slightly. "The wreckage." Yes, that was the troubling part. 3 separate incidents in the past solar cycle, all following the same pattern. Well-equipped raider groups, the kind that had been terrorizing merchant vessels for decades, simply gone. Their ships found drifting in space, hulls breached in ways that suggested weapons technology unlike anything in the Confederation's extensive databases. "The weapons signatures," he mused aloud, "they're crude. Primitive, even. Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, basic energy weapons. The kind of technology a species might develop if they were too stupid to invest in proper plasma cannons or quantum disruptors. And yet," Yela September added, her voice carrying a note of genuine puzzlement, "they're devastatingly effective. The raider ships weren't just destroyed, they were dismantled. Systematically. Professionally. Sir." The communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Dex Prime, suddenly straightened at his station. "I'm detecting something." Vex-Thorne's attention snapped to the main display. "What kind of something?" "Multiple contacts, sir. They're dropping out of hyperspace. Directly ahead." The bridge erupted in controlled activity. Tactical displays lit up, sensor arrays swiveled, and the ship's defensive systems came online with a deep, thrumming hum. "How many?" Vex-Thorne demanded, his earlier amusement evaporating. 67 vessels, sir." "No, wait, 83. "No, they're still arriving." Through the viewport, space began to shimmer and distort as ship after ship materialized from hyperspace. They were ugly things, these vessels. Blocky, angular, with none of the elegant curves that marked proper starship design. They looked like they'd been assembled in a junkyard by creatures with no aesthetic sense whatsoever. "Well," Vex-Thorne said, his voice steady despite the growing knot of unease in his stomach, I suppose we're about to find out if the myths are true. Sir, Krosnine's voice carried an odd note, the ship configurations don't match anything in our databases. The energy signatures are strange. Strange how? They're running hot, sir. Much hotter than any sensible species would operate their vessels. And the power distribution, it's all wrong. It's like they're channeling massive amounts of energy into systems that shouldn't require it. Yela September's 6 arms moved in a complex pattern across her controls. Weapon systems are online, shields at maximum. But sir, there are now over 200 of them. 200? Vex-Thorne's crest flattened completely. Are you certain? 237, sir. And they're forming up in what appears to be a battle formation. The Admiral stared at the growing fleet of mismatched vessels. Each one was different from the others, as if they'd been designed by entirely separate civilizations. Some were sleek and predatory, others looked like flying cities, and still others resembled nothing so much as enormous weapons bristling with every conceivable type of armament. Sir, Dexprime's voice cracked slightly, I'm receiving a transmission. On screen. The main display flickered and resolved into an image that made several of the bridge crew take an involuntary step backward. The creature looking back at them was indeed bipedal, as the legends described, but there was something about it that suggested barely contained violence. It had forward-facing eyes, the mark of a predator, and its mouth was set in what might have been a smile but looked more like a threat display. Greetings, the creature said, its voice somehow managing to convey both politeness and menace. I'm Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. You've been conducting military operations in claimed human space. Vex-Thorne found his voice. I am Admiral Vex-Thorne of the Galactic Confederation. Human space? I'm afraid you're mistaken. This entire sector has been under Confederation control for 3,247 years, Captain Vasquez interrupted. Yes, we know. We've been watching. Watching? The word came out as more of a hiss than Vex-Thorne had intended. Oh yes. We've been very interested in your management style. The enslaved species, the strip-mined worlds, the casual genocide. Fascinating stuff, really. We've been taking notes. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of Yela September's nervous arm tapping against her console. Now, Captain Vasquez continued, her smile growing wider and somehow more unsettling, I'm going to give you a choice. You can surrender your vessel and submit to questioning about Confederation war crimes, or... She paused, and behind her, the image shifted to show what appeared to be a massive weapons array powering up. Well, let's just say option 2 involves a lot more screaming. Vex-Thorne's mouth worked silently for a moment. You're threatening the flagship of the Confederation Navy? Threatening? Captain Vasquez looked genuinely surprised. Admiral, I think you misunderstand. I'm not threatening you. The image behind her showed dozens of targeting systems locking onto the Eternal Dominion. I'm explaining the situation. Sir, Krosnine whispered urgently, sensors are detecting massive energy buildups across their entire fleet. Whatever those weapons are, they're charging them. How is this possible? Vex-Thorne demanded. You're primitives. You don't even have proper scales or natural armor. Captain Vasquez's laugh was perhaps the most terrifying sound the bridge crew had ever heard. Oh, Admiral. You really don't understand humans at all, do you? The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sir, Yela September said quietly, what are your orders? Vex-Thorne stared at the growing fleet of human vessels, his mind racing through 3,000 years of military doctrine and finding nothing that had prepared him for this moment. The myths were real. The humans were real. And judging by the weapons now trained on his ship, they were very, very angry. Get me the high command, he said finally. And someone find me everything we know about human psychology. I have a feeling we're going to need it. Outside the viewport, the human fleet continued to grow, each new arrival adding to what was rapidly becoming the largest military formation anyone on the bridge had ever seen. And somewhere in the depths of space, more ships were still coming. The holographic display in the Eternal Dominion's war room flickered with static as High Command's transmission struggled through the interference. Fleet Admiral Zekravani's image wavered, his golden scales dulled with what Vex-Thorne recognized as barely suppressed panic. 300 ships? Zekravani's voice crackled through the speakers. Vex-Thorne, are you absolutely certain? 300 primitive vessels? 412, sir. And counting. Vex-Thorne gestured to the tactical display behind him. They keep arriving. It's like they're materializing out of nowhere. Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected a fleet of that size. The energy signatures alone, sir, Kraz-9 interrupted, his metallic voice cutting through the transmission. With respect, our intelligence networks didn't even know these creatures existed until 6 hours ago. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Zekravani spoke again, his voice carefully controlled. What do they want? They want us to surrender, Vex-Thorne said, and even saying the words felt surreal. They're accusing the Confederation of war crimes. War crimes? Zekravani's laugh was bitter. We're the law in this galaxy. We define what constitutes a crime. I don't think they recognize our authority, sir. Before Zekravani could respond, the transmission cut out entirely. The war room fell silent except for the subtle vibration of the ship's hull, a vibration that seemed to be growing stronger. Sir, Dex Prime's voice came through the internal communications. Captain Vasquez is requesting another conference. Put her through. The main display shimmered and resolved into the human captain's face. She looked remarkably calm for someone facing down the most powerful warship in the galaxy. Admiral, she said pleasantly, I hope you've had time to consider our offer. Your offer? Vex-Thorne's crest bristled. You mean your ultimatum? Oh, I prefer to think of it as a learning opportunity. Captain Vasquez's smile was razor-sharp. You see, we humans have spent the last few centuries studying your Confederation. Very thoroughly. We know about the Keltharian genocide, the Praxian slave worlds, the systematic destruction of the Yleni home system. Those were military necessities, Vex-Thorne protested. The expansion of civilization requires, spare me the propaganda, Captain Vasquez interrupted. We've heard it all before. The strong rule the weak, survival of the fittest, the natural order of things. It's a very popular philosophy among bullies throughout the universe. Bullies? Vex-Thorne's voice rose. We are the Confederation. We brought peace to this galaxy. You brought submission, Captain Vasquez corrected. There's a difference. But don't worry, Admiral. We're here to teach you about another very popular philosophy. And what would that be? That every bully, no matter how big, eventually meets someone bigger. The transmission shifted to show a wider view of the human fleet. Vex-Thorne's breath caught in his throat. The formation had grown to nearly 600 vessels, arranged in perfect battle formation. But it wasn't just the number that made his scales crawl with unease. It was the way they moved. Confederation ships moved with the mechanical precision of advanced technology and millennia of tactical doctrine. These human vessels moved like a pack of predators, each one seeming to anticipate the movements of the others in ways that suggested an almost supernatural level of coordination. How? He whispered. How what, Admiral? How did you coordinate a fleet this size without our detection networks noticing? How did you build ships that can challenge Confederation technology? How did you even survive as a species long enough to develop space travel? Captain Vasquez's expression softened slightly, and for a moment, she looked almost sympathetic. Admiral, I think you've been ruling the galaxy for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to be the underdog. You've forgotten what desperation can accomplish. Desperation? We didn't have scales or natural armor, so we invented better weapons. We didn't have enhanced biology, so we enhanced our technology. We didn't have lifespans measured in centuries, so we learned to work together in ways your species never imagined. Every disadvantage became an advantage if we were creative enough. Vex-Thorne stared at the human fleet, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. But the energy signatures, the heat distribution, the power requirements. Your ships are operating at levels that should be impossible. Impossible? Captain Vasquez laughed, and there was genuine amusement in her voice. Admiral, do you know what we call impossible? A starting point. This is insane, Yela September muttered behind him. They're running their reactors at temperatures that would melt most known materials. Yes, Captain Vasquez said, apparently having heard her. It took us about 50 years to develop materials that could handle those temperatures. 50 years of trial and error, of explosions and failures and starting over. Do you know what kept us going? What? Vex-Thorne asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Spite, Captain Vasquez said cheerfully. Pure, concentrated spite. We discovered we were sharing the galaxy with creatures who thought they owned it, who enslaved entire species and called it civilization. That made us very, very angry. Anger is irrational, Vex-Thorne said. Anger leads to mistakes. Oh, Admiral. You really don't understand humans at all. Captain Vasquez's smile was back, and it was terrifying. Anger doesn't make us irrational. It makes us creative. It makes us determined. It makes us very, very dangerous. Sir, Krosnine's voice was tight with stress, I'm detecting massive energy spikes across their entire fleet. Whatever they're planning to do, they're about to do it. Captain Vasquez, Vex-Thorne said urgently, surely we can negotiate. The Confederation has resources, technology, territory. We can reach some kind of agreement. Oh, we already have an agreement, Captain Vasquez replied. You're going to surrender your ship and submit to questioning about war crimes, or we're going to demonstrate why human weapons don't appear in your databases. And if we choose option 2? Then you'll have about 30 seconds to appreciate the irony of being destroyed by creatures you thought were myths. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of various crew members' nervous breathing. Vex-Thorne looked around at his officers, seeing his own fear reflected in their faces. 3,000 years of galactic dominance, and it might all end here, at the hands of bipedal mammals who built ships that violated every principle of sensible engineering. Sir, Dex Prime said quietly, Admiral Zekgravani is requesting an emergency conference. Put him through. The display split, showing both Captain Vasquez and the fleet admiral. Zekgravani's scales had gone completely pale. Vex-Thorne, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, were detecting similar fleets materializing at 17 different Confederation strongholds. They're everywhere. 17? Vex-Thorne's voice cracked. 19 now. No, 22. They're appearing faster than we can count them. Captain Vasquez's smile grew wider. Did I mention we're very thorough? We've been planning this for quite some time. This is impossible, Zekgravani said. The logistics alone, the coordination required, Admiral, Captain Vasquez interrupted, you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. How many ships do you have? Vex-Thorne demanded. Enough, Captain Vasquez replied. We've been building in secret for decades, using resources from systems you didn't even know existed. Did you really think you'd cataloged every rock in the galaxy? But the energy requirements, the materials, the industrial capacity, we're very good at making do with what we have, Captain Vasquez said. It's a survival trait. We had to learn it early, back when we were just trying to survive on our homeworld. Then we had to learn it again when we discovered we were sharing the galaxy with genocidal maniacs. We're not maniacs, Vex-Thorne protested. We're a civilized species. We follow protocols, we have procedures, you have a 3,000-year history of systematic oppression and mass murder, Captain Vasquez said flatly. We have the documentation to prove it. Documentation? How could you possibly? We're very good at gathering intelligence, Captain Vasquez said. Almost as good as we are at building weapons. Speaking of which, you now have 15 seconds to make your decision. Vex-Thorne looked around the bridge one last time. His crew, the finest officers in the Confederation fleet, were staring at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. 3,000 years of galactic dominance, and it came down to this: surrender to creatures they dismissed as myths, or face annihilation at the hands of beings who had turned their every disadvantage into a weapon. He began, then stopped. 10 seconds, Admiral. The humans had been watching them for centuries, learning their weaknesses, planning their revenge. They'd built a fleet that could challenge the entire Confederation, and they'd done it in secret, using technology that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. 5 seconds. Vex-Thorne closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his decision was made. We surrender, he said quietly. Captain Vasquez's smile was brilliant and terrifying. Excellent choice, Admiral. Welcome to the new galaxy. Outside the viewport, the human fleet began to move with the fluid precision of apex predators closing in on their prey. The age of the Confederation was over. The age of humanity had begun, and somewhere in the depths of space, more human ships were still arriving.